viewers to this special edition of the Infra Show. Today with me in Bangalore, this is Professor A.G. Iyer, editor and publisher of Inertia, and with me today is Mr. N. Murugesan, who is the Director General of CPRI, Central Power Research Institute. CPRI is one of India's top institutions and an institution which has provided the backbone for the growth of our entire energy sector and power industry in particular, where you look at the high voltage testing, you look at the entire power distribution segment, and you also look at the entire power generation testing. Wherever there is a need for testing and authentication, it has been CPRI that has backed and made India a technology leader in the world. And CPRI's role in this is continuously expanding. So today we are going to discuss with Murugesan sir. Welcome Murugesan sir.
Yes.
Today we are going to discuss with Murugesan ji few issues relevant to the power sector of India. First sir, I want to ask you, right now we are about 240 gigawatt of installed capacity as per the Statistical Institute, Center Statistical, and of which we see roughly about the share of renewable energy is 17%. The share of hydro is about 16%, and the balance is completely driven by the thermal power sector. Of course, there is a little bit of nuclear in that, but I would say predominantly thermal centric. And we see that we will be adding by, let's say, 800,000 gigawatt by 2032.
Correct.
Now, I want to ask you the question that CPR is a very critical organization for being able to, for achieving this. So how do you see your role? First, in terms of what we have achieved, now the growth plan, which is quite massive, how does CPRI plan to give the backbone support to this growth, sir?
Yes. Sir, to address this question comprehensively, if you look back, our organization, it started when we just got independence. In 1960 we started. The sense about just after 12 years after we got independence. That time the total power generation capacity available was just below 2000 megawatt, just below that. But that time the planners had a vision that the India power growth should be coupled with quality power equipment delivery.
Right.
So to give this quality power equipment delivery to the, whether it is talking about generation, transmission or distribution, you need to have proper evaluation facility.
Right.
To see that finally the end user get the quality product for lasting, for to improve. First is to address reliability,
Right.
and the quality to meet its all functional requirements.
Right.
So there were similar laboratories available in the world. That time only a very few, like 1 or 2 laboratories were available. In Europe, predominantly is called KEMA and CHESI. Then in Japan is a CREPI.
Right.
That's all a few institutes available which contributed for the quality development of the end products. So the planners had a very correct this one, what you call plan, say that how the industry, whole electrical industry benefited out of this particular laboratory. The same model they set up 1960, but their vision was such a way that that time itself they realized that India is going to grow in a very, very fast manner. So initially that time there were fund constraints, but with the UNDP development program,
The United Nations Development Program.
So it came forward and they set up laboratory in Government of India set up this laboratory with a very specific purpose. One is that they wanted to develop the heavy electrical equipment.
Right.
So at that time only BHEL was the only organization
Which was doing this.
it was doing this one. Just it was in the formative stage. 1956, so they started. So to complement the electrical product development from BHEL, switchgear testing development station was thought of to establish in Bhopal, and at the same time The Indian Institute of Science was the only institute in the country which was having high voltage laboratory.
Right.
So they felt that one unit should be set up in Bangalore.
Right.
So that they had very clear cut planning that one is for Bhopal, which is meant exclusively for development of switchgear related equipments, and in Bangalore it is only high voltage insulated related thing. So that way they set it, and the important is that these are all very capital intensive laboratories.
Right.
So no private entrepreneur can afford to have the laboratory. So it was very clear thought process went into that, how the institute will play a very important role. So it was in that direction, and it is a capital intensive laboratory. It is not few lakhs or something. It involves few crores, hundreds of crores. So they said that, and they established a laboratory to see that small manufacturer to large manufacturer should be able to use this laboratory for product development.
Correct.
So that way it was well conceived laboratory, and in that direction CPR has played a role. They say in 1960s about 100 kVA transformer. That was our Indian capability to manufacture transformer. But the testing facility was, evaluation facility was created almost around 200 times
Okay.
the manufacturing capacity.
Okay.
So that,
So that means the very big scale up was there.
yes, that time they felt that it should be set up like this so that it is cope up with this development in the industry.
Right.
So it is a very good plan and nicely done. And with our laboratory, we developed all the product you name, any product in India, it has been evaluated in CPRA for, one is for reliability point of view. Next is that equipment need to satisfy many of these safety requirements and functional requirements. So it is all possible only with our laboratory. And for entrepreneur, we played a role. See that he comes with a first design, then the design validation is done here.
Okay.
Then again with this our evaluation, we find lots of gaps in the design. Then again with the oscillogram or test results, everything will be shared with this entrepreneur, and he goes back and again modify the things. Again we fill up the gaps. Then again he brings. Then again we evaluate it. Then we like that. Finally it meets the international standard. So the quality of power supply is ensured. It is only because of CPRA. Nothing, nobody can claim that there is a reliability of power supply is ensured because of CPRA.
Right. Now I want to know, how many centers now today? In that sense, Bangalore is your biggest base. But how many centers totally we have? For the viewers' sake,
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
And what is the uniqueness of maybe a couple of them you can name? What
Yes.
is unique about?
Yes. So initially when they started way back in 1960, they thought that only the two centers can serve the whole country.
Right.
But over a period of time, our power development really went up on the very upstream side. So, so we need to be present, as well as we need to cater where very specific area of power supply chain. So what happened? The over a period of time, we expanded our activities to very specific areas. Say first is we started from Bangalore and Bhopal at the same time. Then the power supply requirement has gone up, and the system system voltage has gone up from 132 kV to 222 kV, 220 to 400 kV. Then we realized that there is a necessity for studying all the issues related to high voltage and extra high voltage and ultra high voltage. By the time India had a clear cut plan that it has to move in that direction.
Right.
So we have set up very special laboratory. Example is that in Hyderabad we have set up ultra high voltage research laboratory. It addresses only high voltage and EHV, UHV related only issues. So we have set up like this. Then we need to address thermal related aspect. So we realized that the Nagpur was a proper place because large number of thermal power stations were there. So we set up a laboratory called the Thermal Research Center that addresses only thermal related, nothing else. There you can't see any electrical thing. Like UHVRL only exclusively devoted only for high voltage and extra high voltage. This is meant exclusively for thermal related. So we set up that laboratory in 1992. Of course, there were lots of demands from our customers from northern part of India. So we wanted to be closer to them so that they need not travel from there to down south to Bangalore. So we set up a satellite kind of test center in in Muradnagar near Delhi. Then we realized that we need to cater to the needs of our northeastern friends. So we set up one small unit in Guwahati as well as in Calcutta.
Okay.
So we are totally now 7 laboratories are there
Right.
to utter
Spread across the country.
across the country.
So sir, we now coming to that, when all this development is happening, today we are seeing, and you have been at the forefront of it in discussing these issues in many of the forums, including inertia forums, that is the smart grid access.
Yes, yes,
Now this nation has to go towards smart grid.
yes,
Now the second issue is that distribution automation and integrating smart grid
Yes.
using the IT and telecommunications.
yes, yes.
So where is the stage? What stage? Now from pilots, have you implemented some of those pilots or what stage they are there? And what is the next stage, the strategic progress toward national smart grid? What are the strategic steps towards a national smart grid for India?
Actually, when the power system started from isolated to integrated systems, and when the system went on increasing, the managing the power system became very Herculean task. So the IT became a very important tool, necessary tool to manage the network. So the IT intervention started coming 1970s when the advent of computers started coming. So the electrical utility was the first entity to embrace this communication as well as computer. Communication they use for data transmission and computer for local control. So we are the first entity to do that. But when the system become bigger and bigger, managing the transmission network has become very critical. So the IT intervention and the technology like from convention relay to digital relays and the substation, large station has become very small because of miniaturization. So many things, the technology started going into that. So then there is a stage when they realize that the renewable at the same time the demand on power has increased so much, and that conscious towards environment also started increasing. The renewable energy started having a great impact on the whole operation. But by the time the whole power system also need to adjust to this, because it's a vertically integrated one, generation, transmission, distribution is singular, vertically integrated. But when this kind of demands and the renewable energy integration became essential for our survival, then the whole system started changing. So the people were started calling as a grid modernization, then intelligent grid, then this kind of started. They started with only modernization or making this grid controllable. All such things started. Then when the photovoltaic cell and the renewable energy, it started showing that it becomes easier or it become cost effective, then lots of interest started shifting, and by the time the awareness also has gone increased to green energy and all such things. So it took a center stage. Now when you want to integrate the renewable energy, especially so photovoltaic and wind energy, this poses lots of challenges. So sometime in 2007, the the first legislation called that is electric. What is that? America introduced one very important legislation to secure this energy security
Bill.
bill.
It was the energy security bill.
Yes, 2007. It not only it talks about electrical security as one of the
Components.
component of the energy security. So there they coined chapter number. It is called chapter 13 or 14. There they mentioned that there is a system called smart grid. This is the first legislation to our knowledge. That legislation put a word called smart grid systems. So the important thing is that yes, there are lots of challenges, but at the same time it offers the variety of options. So it contains the smart grid is not a single system.
Right.
It
It's
is
a well integrated module.
it is normally they call the 8-layer model.
Okay.
8-layer model start with first home. The home, then home management, then over that you come to your electricity meter, then beyond that, then substation automation, then grid automation, then integration, then management, then energy efficiency, all constitute the whole framework of smart grid. So we have distinct layers of smart grid. So only when you address all the 8, it becomes smart grid systems. So where are we now? In the sense, if we look at the electricity systems,
Correct.
generation, we are fair enough in
Right.
terms of
We have substantial capacity.
substantial capacity, and the system of working is also reasonably comparable to the rest of the country, rest of the world.
Yeah, but still, we are saying we have an 80 gigawatt shortfall.
Huh.
The
Yes.
peak shortfall is much higher than the
Huh.
because there is no base load now. Capacity.
Yes.
Still, we have a shortfall.
Yes. So then transmission also we are comparable. The area where we need more attention is the distribution.
Exactly. Because
Distri-
today I can understand what you are saying, because today I must tell the viewers that out of 240 gigawatt, we in fact end up only producing 134 gigawatt in generation terms. So what Murugesh ji is saying is absolutely right. That we need to focus on the distribution.
Distribution. So when we talk about distribution, where the energy monitoring or the customer participation or integrating a renewable and the policy to compensate to the customers. So these are all the many issues to be addressed. So unless otherwise we address all the 8 components, we may not be able to reach the smart grid concept.
Right.
And the generation, transmission, they are fair enough. And even distribution automation, under RAPDRP, they identified 70 plus cities across the country where they introduced distribution automation. Distribution automation is again one building block of the smart grid 8-layer model.
Right.
So if this on RAPDRP 70 cities which may go for distribution automation system, so one layer will be completely addressed.
Right.
So that way one layer will be addressed. Transmission automation is over at the generation, and the major thing is the distribution. Again we have to come back from the distribution automation to the distribution meter automation, the integration, all such. There lies the lots of challenges, and there plays the standards.
Right.
Smart grid, there is no single standard.
Right.
It is a collection of various standards from meter, transmission, system generation, or your renewables, or you name anything. About 270 plus standards are available. So the major basic thing is that we need to see that all these equipments which goes into the electric system, it complies with the standards.
Okay.
And especially communication standards, because the information need to flow from one equipment to another equipment or one system to another system seamlessly, so that we can able to see that visibility as well as controllability is possible. So seamless information flow is a basic fundamental essential ingredient to make the system, all the smart grid component to work cohesively. So that is very very important. So no proprietary, everything should be based on open protocol or open system, see that the system information flows seamlessly. So there lies lots of challenges, so we need to address that particular area.
Right. So what you are effectively saying is the grid integration with the smart grid access is essential. So it is going to be an integrated system
Yes.
with this 8-layer model that
8-layer
you
model.
talked about.
Yes.
And you also mentioned about renewable energy as an important component in this grid integration strategy.
Yes, yes.
Because more and more renewables are going to come.
And it is going to be a great challenge, because this renewable energy form a seasonal kind of things.
Right.
So it will have a great impact on the grid system. And this again variation in the atmosphere, the environment like that. So we need to have a proper system, see that it integrates seamlessly and it doesn't have any impact on the whole power system
Right.
as a whole. So it's a great challenge, and India has a great opportunity to make a great impact, and we will get lots of benefit out of nature given to us.
Right. So now, sir, India is de facto a country which has gone to the 1200 kV system in the ultra high voltage area. Are we, EHV, UHV success after this, are we in an advanced stage of the HVDC system?
Actually, there are two kinds of a system for transmission.
Right.
One is AC, which is a conventional thing.
Right, with the alternating cycle.
Alternate current cycle. So that is one established one. But there is a system called direct current.
Correct.
So this is right now. These are all involved with the power electronics and devices like that. So primarily now it is used on the transmission system where long transmission is
Taking
there.
place.
And you have to pump more power from remote generation to
The station.
remote consumer,
Right.
the long distance. So the DC is become is cheaper after a particular distance, say about 400 km, 500 km. It will become cheaper than AC,
Okay.
and moreover it occupies very less space. So the DC transmission, in addition to that, controllability of DC transmission is also very easier. So it is used as both for transmitting bulk power as well as grid management. It is easy to manage the DC systems. So, and in fact our growth is so high, the large number of DC transmission systems are available in India as of now.
Right. So is this the future? Like transporting HVDC, using HVDC. Is this the future for our bulk transport of electricity?
The DC is well established that for transmitting large power, DC will become
Cheaper.
DC is cheaper,
Economical and faster as well.
fast, economical. So the thing is that everything we cannot depend only on DC, because it carries a large power and associated things are there. So always the planner will have a combination of AC and DC, see that it meets the complete the system requirements. But in case of AC transmission comes into picture, now in India we have gradually grown up from 66 kV line to now 400 kV, then is 760
kV.
760 also wake up, and it has become now we are stabilizing.
Right.
So
At
next
1200 kV.
now next alternative is that next AC transmission systems. So when we look at it, I think world over people were experimenting with I think Japanese were trying with some 1000 kV, and Chinese were trying with 1100 kV. But thing is that the data, full data is not available, and will maybe for various reasons may not be made available. So India realized that the next AC systems, when you want to go that, so this may be the, because India and China has the potential to generate this kind of large power. So they've realized that somewhere around 1200 kV will meet all our requirement. 1200 kV may transmit few thousands of megawatt of power from say from northeast to road center like Delhi. So they realized that it should be around 1200 kV. Transmission system will serve our nation's requirements. So with that one, Power Grid started a small experimental line in Bina. It is a back-to-back kind of things that with all Indian companies for partnership.
Yeah. Basically, it's all an India-based partnership.
This is a great thing happened. One thing is that our manufacturing capability straight away went from 400 kV to 1200 kV. There is a large jump,
Right.
and all are indigenously developed. So now everything, all the data, equipment or system requirement, all data is available. And in this context, CPRI played a very, very important role. And we worked with all the suppliers, roughly about 40 manufacturers, to produce the component necessary for 1200 kV.
Right.
And in fact, this R&D work, in fact, we have reduced the tariff to even 50% to encourage people to do that, because it doesn't give immediate return. But only thing is their capability has gone up, and when it comes, they may be able to come up to this expectation. So that way, the laboratory which was set up in 1991 in Hyderabad, exclusively for high voltage, it became very handy. And we helped all the manufacturers for testing their equipment as for high voltage requirements are concerned. So that way, for 1200 kV, contribution from CPRI is too good, and even we have done lots of studies. We are spacing studies and so many things in associated Power Grid. So it was very helpful in commissioning the experimental line in Bina.
Right.
That way we have done
Right, sir.
wonderful contribution to the 1200 kV technology.
Right, sir. So now, see, one last question, sir, in this short interview which we had. Anything that you want a message for the country, in terms of going towards technology access, going towards a robust system, developing a nationally robust grid.
Okay. One is that as an organization which have been created only to develop this quality product, and our mandate is that we need to help in utilities maintaining this reliability, or producing reliable equipment, or doing research, national level research for developing this power sector. There are clear-cut roadmap, because India is a country next to China, going in a very fast track and energy driven nation. So we have a very clear thing that our power system may go to 8 lakhs megawatt of power in 2032. So we need to gear up. One is the transmission systems. Next is that the quality of equipment which goes into that.
Right.
So this is very, very important, because the loss caused by the deficient equipment will be disastrous, especially in a high voltage and EHV voltage. So we need to see that the quality equipments are produced and installed in systems. So in that direction, CPR has geared up to see that we are on par with international laboratories available in Europe to develop the laboratories, especially short circuit test facilities. This is very, very critical, very important facility which is necessary for developing all switch gears going to this EHV networks, as circuit breaker and related things. So we have a clear plan, and Government of India is helping us a lot with the 12th plan. We have approximately we projected outlay of about 1,370 crore. Government has tentatively allocated this kind of money for developing the laboratories across the country, and major thing goes for developing short circuit test facility, which is very, very essential for developing EHV class equipments. So in another 2 to 3 years down the line, we will be sufficient in all kinds of tests. No equipment need to cross the Indian boundary to other laboratory. In this context, I would like to say that there is a laboratory which is coming up in Bina. This is meant for short circuit test facility. This is based on online, and with this one, in maybe the December itself, we need not go outside the country to do the testing on large power transformers and related things. So as a backup and other things, as a country is a so large country, so many short circuit laboratories are essential. So to meet all the requirements, so India now CPR is geared up to see that the test gap in test are filled up, and in another 2 years down the line, we will become almost self-sufficient in all respect of evaluation facility, and we need to gear up to see that we become a partner in the development of good, reliable equipment for meeting the 1,200 class equipments.
Right. Thank you, Murugeshan ji. This was a wonderful interview. It was N. Murugeshan, Director General CPRI, who is doing fantastic work at the Central Power Research Institute to bring India to one of the best countries in terms of its grid capability, its reliability, and its ability to produce world-class equipment in both transmission, distribution, and also generation sector. We will have our next guest, our next interview. In the meanwhile, goodbye, and once again, thank you, Murugeshan sir.
Thank you very much for
on this
giving
Infra Show.
An opportunity to share what CPRI is doing to the country and what are the plans in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.